I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. I want to thank you guys again so much for tuning in. We have an amazing guest on the show today. I'm actually I'm gonna love this one. Uzziah Anthony Harris. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me out tonight.
Oh, anytime, anytime. So first of all, let's go back in history. Let's talk about you and what led you up to this point.
So I think that all of us were affected very much by the last presidential administration. I think some of us more than others. I think that those of us who are people of color understood very well the landscape of our country. I think that a lot of the rhetoric that came from the last administration kind of opened the floodgates, if you will. And I think, like no time before, kind of opened our eyes to just how far we haven't come, right? And so, again, I'm not one to say we haven't made any progress. That is certainly not true. But I think that we were suffering from a little bit of naivete, if you will, and we believed that we were much farther along than we were. The events of the pandemic, when you couple that together with the political landscape, when you triple that with some of the things we were able to see in raw, real time as it related to brutality here in this United States, as we saw the mistreatment of our Hispanic brothers and sisters, and whether or not they are citizens of this country is debatable. I don't want to go into that. We still shouldn't treat human beings a certain way. When you have the culmination of all those things, it gets you to thinking. And I remember as a man of faith, as a Black man, trying to reconcile all of these things and beginning to go back to an old habit, putting pen to paper. And as I put pen to paper, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, they began to flow. And at some point, it made its way into the work that you know today as Trial by Fire.
Oh my goodness. You have just hit so many different pinpoints, I'm sure, on not just myself, but some of the listeners here today. You're right. We have come a good distance, but we're not as far as we think or as far as we thought we were. And you are so right. I mean, I have experienced that within the last year of just being called out of my name, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it's like, and it's, the text messages that came when I started a new venture weren't so nice. And it wasn't because I wasn't a great person. It was because of the color of my skin. Just put it that way. So I was called out of my name within the last 12 months. And so that really brought me back to the point where, not everyone is for you. And where I thought I was, I am no longer there. And it's not a regression, it's more of an awakening.
Yes.
And I don't think we are regressed by any means, because I am a person and I do treat people as such. But you have hit on so many points. Why did you go this route? This is not an easy route, to say the least. You're touching on some stuff that most people would shy away from at day one.
Yeah, I'll tell you. We talk about being called out of our name. And I can remember vividly in my high school years, I was about 17, 18 years old. I am a Virginia resident. My dad got out of the military. Virginia was the last place we moved. I remember living in what is considered a progressive part of Virginia, Northern Virginia. Attended Fairfax County Public Schools. Shout out to Fairfax County Public Schools. My father was, as I said, military. And so we lived on a military base in Northern Virginia known as Fort Belvoir, about 10, 12-ish miles outside of DC. I can remember going with my friends to an eatery. I can't remember whether it was Burger King, McDonald's, something of that nature. I remember all of us going to eat. And I remember an adult telling us specifically, go back to Africa. Now, this is in the 1990s. for those of us who may think, I may look old, but I'm not that old, right? And here I am having a racial epithet hurled toward me with such venom, with such vitriol. And I remember as a 17, 18-year-old looking around for other adults to rescue us. Is someone going to stand up for us? Is someone going to say, this isn't right in 1994-ish? What ended up happening, conversely, was the manager threw us out of the establishment. Now, this is no different from the way my father had been treated and been called in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. This is no different from what my grandfathers, maternal and paternal, had to face as sharecroppers in rural North Carolina. This is no different today as my nieces and nephews traverse through this world and grow up having to hear some of the same stigma, some of the same ignorance. And at some point, we have to say, as a community, as a nation, as individuals, enough is enough. I'm going to shed light on the darkness until all darkness dissipates. So someone had to say it, and I'm kind of thankful to God that he gave me the words to say so.
Goodness gracious. And you got thrown out.
Yeah. I'll never forget it.
My gosh.
One of my best friends at the time was a young man who my dad's in the Army. His mother was in the Air Force. He happens to be white. Now, in the military community, it's kind of different, right? You go all over the world and you're military. You represent the red, white, and blue. So there was a different type of camaraderie with us. There was a different diversity. Even though there was still very much discrimination and racism in the military, there's still an understanding, more so, I believe, than the country as a whole, that we are one nation. So here I am with my best friend, or one of my best friends, who is not a melanated brother. And I think that day I was paying for him to eat. I mean, that's what kind of brotherhood we had. I don't have, you have. You don't have, I have. That type of thing. And this is what was said to us. It totally blew our minds.
And in this sharing aspect of it all, I remember starting and taking over the band that where I'm in right now, the musical group. And we were on stage. It's one of our very first, times that I had taken over with my partner.
Okay.
And I'm the front singer. So it looks like as if I'm like the front person, but it's 50-50. My partner and I, we share in the responsibilities of the band.
Yeah.
And all I could hear was, "Get off the stage, you N." During our performance, people looked at him like, and people pointed to the security guard, and they kicked him out of the building because the people that were there didn't appreciate it.
Beautiful.
That's where they stepped in, because I couldn't stop my performance. I was just shocked. I was like, the next thing I know, everybody's like, "Get out, get out." Like, I mean, it was like a commotion. Like, "You get out of here, you know what I mean? You bigot, you this, you that." I mean, they were calling him all kinds of names.
Yeah.
And then I got the text messages and all that stuff. But it was amazing to me. And that's where I said, I'm not regressing, but I definitely have to reposition myself and my thoughts on where and how far we have come. I thought we were a lot better until, I think that COVID really brought it out too. And I don't know why.
Well, I think, again, I think that I think truth is a hard thing to hide. I think we may try to bury the truth in a number of different ways. Some people bury the truth for convenience. Some people bury the truth for comfort. Some people bury the truth out of fear of what may come about when the truth finally takes the forefront. In America, there is an ugly truth. And that truth is, as much as we want to deny it, We are a country founded, built upon the back of notions of white supremacy. There were people that came across the Atlantic Ocean, and they provided for this country an economic ladder, if you will. I dare say a springboard, even more so than a ladder. And it allowed this country to build economic wealth in such a way to make it one of the mightiest nations in the world and of all time. While we are talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, in the back of our minds as a nation, we have a group of people that we are sending across the ocean, that we are breeding, that we are raping, that we are killing and murdering, that we are dehumanizing. And we don't necessarily provide for them. We don't have a plan for them. Had it not been for the events of the Civil War, had it not been for the Civil Rights Movement, had it not been for the deliverer coming in, hearing the cries of his people, I think in many respects, we would still be in the same boat. Listen, when this Constitution is written, there is an 1808 provision, as I would call it, that simply says, hey, we will not prohibit the transportation of persons as cargo until 1808. Now, mind you, we're talking about 1789-ish. This Constitution is being ratified, and these just founding fathers are saying, but we want to be able to transport people across the Atlantic Ocean 20 more years, another generation. We want a workforce. We want to enrich ourselves for another generation. Your first 10 to 12 presidents are wealthy landowners, slave owners. And the policy that exists is policy that lends itself for them to continue their way of life. We've got to understand how deep this goes. I had someone say to me today, okay, well, racism is just a matter of life. All people are racist, which I push back against. This is just the way it is. It doesn't mean it's systematic. Well, Plessy versus Ferguson says it is. The 3/5 Compromise says that it is. The slave codes that were enacted after slavery says that it is. Redlining says that it is. The prison pipeline says that it is. These are things that are codified in black and white as policy, which is why we need other policy, your 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, your Civil Rights Act of 64, your Voting Rights Act of 65. It's why we need policy to combat it, because it's baked into our very system. And if we don't look at it as such and don't push for radical change, then it will always, like any bad weed, crop back up again, choking the life out of the most beautiful plants in the garden.
In 2012, I visited as a singer with the former lead singer of the Temptations, Mr. Glenn Leonard, in the Hitsville Live show for Motown. We visited and we performed in Mississippi.
Wow.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I walked across the street from the hotel to Walmart. I went into Walmart and I needed a mug for my coffee. I mean, coffee mug. It's just a coffee mug. It didn't have to be anything special. I dropped the one I had. It broke into little pieces. And we were going to be on the road for a little while, and I wanted a coffee mug. So I walked in, and I didn't know where it was, because obviously this Walmart was positioned differently than all the other ones I had ever been in. They're all different, And so I'm walking around. So I'm looking, I'm trying to find it. This particular Walmart had the grocery in the front and everything else in the back. And I didn't know, because usually it's sectioned off from the left to the right.
Yes, ma'am.
But this one isn't. This one was different. And I guess because the warehouse was built differently, they put everything in a different spot. So I'm like, I'm looking around. I walk up to this Caucasian lady and I asked her, where are the coffee mugs? And she looked at me like, and I said, excuse me, where are the coffee mugs? And the Black manager said, she's not going to answer you, darling. The coffee mugs are in the back. And then she looked at the girl and she said, now you finish what I told you to do. I had no idea that, and I'm going to read this to you. This was 2012. I'm going to read this to you, and I don't know if many people know this, but until February the 7th, 2013, the state of Mississippi had never submitted the required documentation to ratify the 13th Amendment, meaning it never officially abolished slavery. The amendment was adopted in December 1865, and after necessary, 3/4 of the 36 states voted in favor of the ratification. Mississippi was one that did not put the paperwork through. So I was still walking in a state that had yet to abolish slavery in 2012. It didn't happen until February the 7th of 2013.
Yeah.
That's coming up. That's only 11 years ago.
Yes. That is absolutely remarkable. And I don't mean that in the best of sense. We have to take a look at our approach to this fight. And one of the things that the NAACP did was they attacked this from a law perspective. When you talk about voting rights again, when you talk about the sit-ins, when you talk about all of the advances made during the civil rights era, it was an attack on the law, because what a lot of us don't know is the law is where the fight is, right? You cannot change a person's heart. Only divine can do that. But you can at least get some remedy from the law. And I think where we fall short many times is we don't understand political power, not having been able to access it until the 1960s, 1965. And so we don't participate as actively as we can. It's the reason that after the pandemic, we were able to push an Asian hate bill through Congress, and we've yet to have an anti-lynching bill. It's the reason why in Georgia and other conservative states, all voting acts, or at least segments of the voting acts provision, have been stripped. It is why redistricting takes place in such a way through gerrymandering that minorities are particularly disadvantaged, moving polling places farther and farther away, getting rid of things such as go to the polls on Sunday when people don't work. We have to understand where we are and what's at stake. And as we come to this next election cycle and this next president, I don't tell anyone how to vote.
Yeah.
That's not my bag. That's not my issue. Because I can tell you, I have grievances on both sides and all sides, and criticism to go around. But I will say this: our lack of participation has been to our detriment. And I liken it to, I'm a teacher by day, I liken it to some of our parents who will show up for a basketball game, show up to a football game because my kid's going to the NBA and my kid's going to the NFL, but will not show up to parent teacher. When we walk in the streets and protest, right? I don't say riot, I say protest. And we don't back it up with grassroots organizing, voting, and policy creation, then we do ourselves a huge injustice. And so part of the book, Trial by Fire, sets this thing in an allegorical setting of a trial. The United States of America versus you and I, and those who share a similar thread of history, being the descendants of those who have been enslaved. And even if you haven't been a descendant of the enslaved, if you're melanated, I can guarantee you this: someone mistook you as a descendant and treated you as such.
Yeah.
And we put them on trial. And if we put America on trial, we list the crimes committed. and we leave it up to the jurors and the readers to decide what's the verdict.
Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and Instagram. Thank you for watching.
It's a law thing.
Whew, that's deep. That hurts. That hurts. It hurts. You know, because even if you weren't a part of, or you were, or your family was never a part of slavery, there was someone that was affected.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you turn a blind eye, except you just don't like and you don't want to admit that these things were in your favor?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As of 2018, 64% of Americans believed racism to be a central and core problem in the United States of America. Now, unfortunately, most of my conservative evangelical brothers don't feel that way. We can talk about that later. We can talk about that for days, how my Christian brothers don't see the problem of racism. But it is indeed a problem underneath the surface that threatens to topple this entire building. And I liken it to the sickness of cancer. Those cells are in the body. The immune system is unable in many cases to detect it because it is actually a part of the body. It grows out of control and eventually consumes the entire body. And what I believe is that 1861 was nothing but a precursor. That if we do not properly remedy the issue, the hate that comes with racism, white supremacy, discrimination in the United States of America, that the United States of America is destined to be one of those great nations lost to history that could have been great. No pun intended, no red hat on top of my head. That could have been great, but never reached its greatness.
And you know, the biggest thing that I see is that people don't realize that if we do connect, let's say that we all connect and and people who understand the law explain the law to us, just like the assistants that explains the bill to the representative or to the Senate or because they don't read these bills.
That's right.
They're too big. They have people reading these bills to them. They have people writing these bills for them. They don't know the entire bill themselves. So how can we as a people understand what's going before us? And if we are not involved in it, we need to be involved.
Yeah.
Even at a explain it at a kindergarten level, what is in this? Give me 10 points that we should be fighting for at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we need to do this. We need to do that. And I've always said it. And I've always gone to vote because I know the importance of it. And I know that, you know, a lot of politicians, they'll go up and they'll say whatever they want to say during their campaign. I will make this, I will do this. And the moment they get in, unless they're bought out, they're changing their mind real quick.
That's right. Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say that, right? Because we talk about it. Historians, when they talk about democracies, they say that the average lifespan of a democracy is around 200 years. When you look at this republic is a little shy under 250, somewhere around 246 years or somewhere there around. This particular historian wrote that there were actually 8 stages of democracy. Toward the end of democracy, what you end up getting is apathy. Apathy gives way to dependence, and dependence gives way to tyranny and bondage. And I believe that time is short in our country. And I've said this is one of the themes that runs through the book, that time is of the essence. I believe we find ourselves in the United States of America in a period of great apathy. Now, understand this. Historically, if you went to church on Sunday and then went to a public lynching after service, at some point your conscience is seared. If family members were able to indiscriminately murder persons, like many of the laws in my state of Virginia at one time, where there was no repercussions whatsoever for murdering Black people. And if you talk to people now, some cases of police brutality, it still feels that way, then the conscience again was seared. Racism is dangerous. The race problem in America is dangerous because, contrary to popular belief, it sickens and affects everybody. There is trauma on all sides, right? One of the things that we talk about in educational circles is the whole CRT argument, right? I don't want my children to feel guilty because they're white. I don't want my children to feel guilty because they're Black. How do we mitigate that issue? It's certainly not by putting it underneath the rug. It's about educating each other about each other in a responsible way so that ignorance can no longer rule the day. So that's all of our job. We have a collective judgment and a collective destiny. Education must be at the forefront. The truth cannot continue to be hidden. And what's really important to me, what the truth I think will bring to bear is the understanding that there can really be no reconciliation, no true reconciliation, without both repentance and restitution. Okay, so I'll say this and then I'll get out the way. 1988, Ronald Reagan, Republican, right, under the Civil Liberties Act, gave reparations to Asian Americans, the descendants thereof, and the survivors for their ill treatment in World War II, right? 1941, Pearl Harbor, backlash, Asian backlash here in this country. They're put in internment camps. Restitution given in 1988 to the tune of, I think, $20,000 per person. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but in today's money, that's over $50,000. I don't know who wouldn't accept $50,000. 1862, Abraham Lincoln, Republican, gives the DC Emancipation Compensation Act. And what it does is gives 900 slave owners within the boundaries of the District of Columbia compensation for wages and property lost as a result of the prohibition of slavery. $300 a slave. In today's money, that's about $9,000. Now, if every slave owner only had one slave, 900 slave owners, $9,000, $8 million-ish. This country's not afraid to give out money.
No.
This country's unwilling to truly repent and truly restore a community that they full well know has been abnormally used for the purposes of their own enrichment. And until we rectify that, we're going to have problems, I believe.
I think I think so too. I think that this nation has been desensitized.
Mm-hmm.
And we are used to, the treatment, but I think trial by fire, town hall, will resensitize you and wake you up.
Yeah.
Not just people of color, anyone, to the ill treatment of a human being, especially in this day and age when a lot of us are mixed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of my family members that are white.
Mm-hmm.
They're my family.
Mm-hmm.
They're my blood. They're my blood. Okay? My blood.
Yes.
And I love them.
Absolutely.
I love them. They are, and if you come after, I will come after you.
Yeah.
You are done.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I feel. So desensitization or desensitized is the word that I'm going after. I am not desensitized. I know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it took that moment of me singing and for them to show me that this is not over.
Yes.
If you are a white family and you have a Black child or a mixed, whatever it is, you are involved. If you are a white father and a white mother with a white child who married a Asian, you are involved.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
grandchildren, those babies and the babies that come after that, somebody gonna come after them if we don't get this right today.
Yeah.
We got to do it.
Yeah.
We got to do it. You are involved. You cannot sit back. You cannot sit back. How many, what is it? It's 70% of people now are mixing. You're telling me that you're not going to get involved, but your great grandbaby is black and white.
Talk about it.
Talk about the one drop blood now. One drop of blood makes them black, right? So you're just going to sit back and do nothing while your grandbabies and your great grandbabies and all of them suffer. And don't you love them?
Yeah. Your point is an amazing point, right? In my state of Virginia, home state of Virginia, what we know, and this is kind of evidence throughout the country, by 2050, Virginia will turn brown. In other words, for the first time in history, it will be majority non-white, where it has been all this time, of course, majority white. And I think that there is a certain trepidation, there's a certain reticence, there's a certain fear in the minds of some. What does this country look like? What happens when this country that has always been predominantly white is no longer predominantly white? You hear the tropes. Again, the moniker "Make America Great Again." You hear the complaints of the fringe. This is not the America I grew up in. You're darn right it isn't the America that you grew up in. And I think what we have to realize is, again, we don't forge a path successfully unless we forge a path together. And part of, I think, the beauty of this conversation is that hopefully, as you've alluded to, people will be able to read the diverse perspectives, the point of views that are put forth in this particular work, and it will be conversation starters. It'll prick persons' hearts, and there will be, as we saw in the early stages of the BLM movement, there'll be a revival in this country, a movement toward the true democratic ideals that I believe make us different from any country in the world, and will allow us to truly actualize our potential. Now, the one caveat I do leave is I don't believe that happens in and of ourselves. I believe we must lend ourselves to our higher and more divine selves for that to happen. Yeah. I don't think man in and of himself, herself, is capable of that type of love. But I do believe that this nation has the potential, because I believe that there are persons who are spiritually centered and believe that it can happen.
Yeah. You know, I look at the children, you know, these kids that grow up in the foster system, the children that grow up in abused homes. What is it that they want? And they don't want color. Who cares? You know, you don't want color. You know, a black person to adopt a black baby. They don't care. They want love. We all need that. We all need love. Yeah. It's never for people like me and you. I could care less what color you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
You're a human being.
That's good.
And you and me, we need to respect each other and love each other and support each other and be there for each other. And if you find yourself inadvertently being a part of a family that is diverse, then love each other, support each other. That's what it needs to be about. And if we can't do that, then there is a certain amount of evil that has embedded themselves into certain people. And that evil cannot be rooted out except by the Most High.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You know, you talk about love, and I think the beautiful thing, I think what is hard to wrap our minds around is if you follow history, uh, the concept of whiteness is a concept that is developed to help justify slavery and to begin to create different social, political caste systems in this country, right? At one point, when you look at the world doesn't define itself by race, by ethnicity, but they are bound together by citizenship of a particular nation. For whatever reason, we have in America not only bought into the concept of race, which isn't a genetic reality, by the way, right? It is a social construct, something we came up with. Not only have we bought into the concept of race, because again, the country is founded upon it and needs to, in its old form, to wholeheartedly embrace it. But we have found a way to export this concept of skin color, race, and supremacy around the world, infecting not only ourselves, but the world as a whole. And so when the United States takes the steps to radically redefine herself to be a country that is not, in fact, rooted in the fallacy of race, then what we also do is open the door to eventually help this world heal as well. Because you're not going to be able to talk to so-called China about their abuses on humanity, given your history. You're not going to be able to talk to Vladimir Putin and his crimes against Ukrainians, given your history. You're not going to be able to go into South America. Surely not going to be able to go into the Middle East without first dealing with, as my little book reads, the log in your eye before you criticize the little twig in your neighbors. And so it's time out for us, again, doing what's convenient. Martin King said it kind of like this. It was easy to integrate lunch counters. Didn't cost America a lot of work. It was easy to integrate schools. Well, not easy, but easier. It didn't cost a lot. But the type of upheaval and redefining that this is going to take is going to cost America something. Some of us are familiar with General Order 15, right? Well, Sherman's Field Order 15. We know it as 40 acres and a mule. It certainly wasn't 40 acres and a mule. It was 40 acres. Can you imagine what the legacy would have been if that type of true restitution had been made? They had confiscated some 400,000 acres of land from former slave owners. If that land had been given to Black communities so that they too can have the economic foothold that was allowed peasants from Europe, that was allowed to other persons coming into this country. Maybe you don't have some of the same socioeconomic issues that we have so vibrant in our inner cities, plaguing our inner cities today. Maybe you don't have some of the same animosity amongst peoples that you have today. It's going to take radical work. And it's going to take radical people who are willing to forge ahead and be at the forefront of that radical work.
Wow. Trial by fire, town hall. You guys gonna have to get that to desensitize. You know, we are desensitized. We got to sensitize ourselves. We really, really do need to. And I think in my immaturity, in my vision, in my imagination, a world together. Imagine just being in love with each other as people, helping each other. I see that an amazing world where just love abounds and children are taken care of, the homeless are taken care of.
Yes.
There's food for everyone. We're sharing everything. We're the camaraderie, the love is so abound that imagine a nation that did that. Imagine a city that did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just
Let me
that
tell
just one. I mean,
you.
I don't think I would ever want to leave. I would
Right.
never have to leave. I would
Yes.
never ever even it would never cross my mind to leave a place where the love abounded no matter where you came from.
Yes. What you're talking about is true humanity. When you were talking, all I could hear was a place where man loves his neighbor as he loves himself. The sad reality, and we saw this I guess, almost at this point, 22 years ago, if you will, September 11th, where grave calamity happened and absolutely rocked us to our core. And for a few days, for a few weeks, for a few months, there was truly unity. There was the United States of America. The unfortunate reality is that sometimes people do not heed the warnings. I think we've been blessed here in this nation to have a number of warnings that internally we need to get our house in order, or external forces threaten us on the horizon. I don't know what it will take. What I hope it doesn't take is major calamity, because that affects every single one of us. All 350 million plus people who live in the United States of America, of different races, of different religions, of different sexual orientations, of different political leanings. Again, we're all in the same boat. We all are in the same pot. We all rise and fall together. And if calamity strikes, we all suffer. So my prayer is, my hope is that we deliberate over the soul of this nation, that we truly turn our faces proverbially to the wall and repent for what are obvious past sins, and become brave enough to lead the world, right? Because we talk about losing the arms race. We talk about losing the race in education. We talk about losing the race on the world stage. No, the race we're losing is that of race, because we've made race more important than the human race.
Yeah.
Let us lead the world there, and then we'll have the utopia that you're speaking of. My prayer is, as I read it in the book, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it already is in heaven. Mm-hmm. Imagine that type of brotherly love, not just in Philadelphia, but across this entire nation.
Wow. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. And I do so hope that everyone that at the sound of our voices will understand that together we are much stronger.
Yes.
Much more powerful. And we can do so much more if we just realize that we are one nation under God instead of many nations under our own ideals. Yeah. Whew, where can people find your book?
So people can find my book on Amazon.com. You can find it both as the Kindle and in hard copy. Amazon.com, Trial by Fire, Deliberations Over the Soul of America. Again, Trial by Fire, Deliberations Over the Soul of America can be found on Amazon. I can be found on a number of platforms. My personal website, www.druzziah, Dr. UAH, druah.org. Again, www.druah.org. On Twitter, on Instagram, I am Dr. Uzziah, DrUzziah. Again, DrUzziah, Dr. Uzziah. And on Facebook, just regular Uzziah Anthony Harris. My prayer is that you'll link up with us. We're having town halls right now all over the place. We've got one coming up this Sunday, as a matter of fact. It is free and open to the public. And so if you access any of those social media pages, you'll be able to download the free link and be a part of the discussion, to be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Yeah. Doctor, thank you.
Thank you.
And you know what? Most people say, oh, you opened up a can of worms. The worms were already out, darling.
Come on now.
Sorry, I just get loud. The worms were already out, darling. We're trying to kill the worms because they're fertilizing the wrong plants.
Yeah.
We're growing the wrong things.
There is such a small portion in the book that I would love to kind of expose to you. It says, am I divisive? No, I'm not. I simply refuse to ignore the divide. And I think that's where we are, right? We are not about being divisive. We understand a house divided can't stand, right? So the United States is of no benefit struggling internally, right? But at the same time, it is foolish and foolhardy to ignore the divide and not seek remedy against those things that threaten to tear us apart. So thank you for this. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.